The ghost with the most is back. It's been a long time coming, too. A lot of starts and stops for this project over the years, but we have a lot of the original players in tow, including Winona Ryder, Catherine O'Hara, Michael Keaton, of course, as the titular character, and director Tim Burton is back, too. Let's talk Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my very spoiler-free review for Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. Yeah, mum is the word on the plot here. I'm not going to really be talking about any of that stuff. So if you've not seen the movie yet and you don't want to be spoiled, well, feel free to continue on watching this video. I'm going to talk about, the actors and maybe some of the characters that they're playing, but nothing, about the plot. If you're like me, the original is such a wonderful piece of work. It's in my top 50 of all time. So I was very, very excited to see this, but I didn't want to know anything before I went in. In fact, I avoided all of the trailers. Last week, I finally had to see one, it popped up on, I think, Hulu or something, but I really had avoided even all of that. So, look, before we launch into my review, though, let me welcome you back to Dan Reviews It. If you are one of my subscribers already, thank you so much. Love having you watch my videos. But if you're not, please consider subscribing or click that notification bell or click the like button, comment below. All of that stuff does help the channel out, and I certainly do appreciate it. All right, so Beetlejuice, like I said, look, this has been a long time coming. There's been a lot of talk about this over the years, and everybody was sort of on board. Tim Burton, Michael Keaton, of course, and Winona Ryder had all said, like, yeah, let's do this, but it's got to be the right project, the right script, the right storylines, and obviously they finally were satisfied with something. And, this is kind of the time for it, too, because it seems we're getting a lot of these, kind of legacy sequels, 30 years or so after the fact. You had Coming to America, the Bill and Ted's movie between the second movie and the third movie was like 29 years, I think. Top Gun Maverick, obviously huge hit. And so the timing is right. And look, Jenna Ortega is coming on board, and she obviously is a very, very hot commodity right now. She's doing Wednesday, and she was part of the Scream sequels. They were, not quite 30 years in the making, but it was, I think, 10 or 12 years, from the fourth to the fifth one. So, she was a part of that. So yes, she is one of the added actors here. Justin Theroux is added on as well. Willem Dafoe, Monica Bellucci, who we have not seen, I think, in quite a while. So, some new faces mixed in with the old. But look, Tim Burton's back as director. Danny Elfman is doing the score once again. And, Michael Keaton, the ghost with the most, baby, he is back, of course, as Beetlejuice. So yeah, look, this is a movie that I think had a lot of hype leading into it because it is such a revered property. It's funny. It was sort of the little movie that could, Michael Keaton's star was still rising. And I don't know what kind of a splash this made at the box office. I know I saw it with my family. I was probably 10, maybe 11. And I think it was a pretty big hit, but big enough that, you had the cartoon series afterwards, and the legacy of this movie has just grown and grown and grown, and everybody quotes it, and, the jokes and everything. So, look, I'm going to put it out there. First and foremost, this is not as good as the original. So if you're looking for that, I don't think that was ever going to happen, right? The first one is just so iconic. Look, Top Gun, yeah, I think Maverick is way better than the original, but the original, was campy or whatever. That's a conversation for another time. But I think this Beetlejuice movie, the original, still holds up today. I think people that are exploring it for the first time are going to enjoy it, just the same pretty much as, I did with my family 30 some years ago. Look, let's talk a little bit about the movie itself without talking about the plot, right? I think one of the things that the filmmakers here were tasked with, and Tim Burton himself, of course, too, is how do we sort of recapture that magic from the first movie without necessarily repeating ourselves, but paying homage to those characters and seeing what they're up to now and making it all sort of make sense. Because there are certain things that I think were never going to happen with this movie, including, Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin's involvement, because they died in the original movie. So now that we're 35 years later, Alec Baldwin looks like a completely different person, than he did back then. So they obviously can't really be in the movie, right? And then Jeffrey Jones, well, he has had, a lot of legal issues, and he has not appeared in a movie in quite some time. And so, he obviously wasn't going to be a part of this either, right? But they have found ways, I think, to bring, both they mentioned the Maitland characters and Charles Dietz. He is, even though Jeffrey Jones himself is not in the movie, the Charles Dietz character, looms large over the plot of this movie, and I think that was an interesting choice. And one that I was curious about how they were going to sort of handle some of those things, and I think they did it very well. And things that Lydia and Delia are up to, they kind of make sense in line with the characters that we knew then, but some growth, certainly. I think Delia is a bit of a different character in this one, but I think one that makes sense for her character. So I thought that was an interesting way to go. Now, I will say we see more of the afterlife here than we did in the original. Those were some of the most fun parts of that original movie, so I think they wanted to explore that a little bit more. I will be honest, I think when we get into some of the afterlife stuff, I think this movie is trying to bite off a little more than it can chew. There's a lot going on. I think this movie is a bit plot heavy, actually. There's like 4 or 5 different plots here, and they're all sort of getting tied together towards the end. Some maybe more satisfying than others, but I think you could have excised one plot almost entirely from the movie, and I don't think it would have mattered much. Like, look, everything sort of adds a little bit to the story, sure, but in the beginning, there's so much going on, it is a little bit confusing, and like, okay, what's happening? How is this going to fit in? And I do think it all ties together. I think they stuck the landing, as they say, but I think maybe this is a little bit too heavy on the various plots that are going on, so I will say that. But smartly, we don't see that much of Beetlejuice yet again. People forget that first movie, the character of Beetlejuice is only in it like 15, 16 minutes, something like that. And here, it's probably a little bit more. I didn't get out a stopwatch or anything, but it's probably a little more. But they still, kind of kept him at bay. I think, a little bit of Beetlejuice, the character, goes a long way. I think if we had the whole movie, about the Beetlejuice character, and I guess most of the plots do well. No, I would say there's at least 2, very well thought out plots and plot lines that don't involve him at all. And yes, he ends up sort of inserting himself towards the end, but I think it was a wise choice to once again keep that character sort of more at bay. And another thing that Burton did well, I think, here is go back to the use of the practical effects. This movie looks a lot like the original movie. There is some claymation, there is some of the same type of effects that they had in that original movie. And again, without going into really details on that, but I think it was a wise choice because I think it retains the look of that original movie. So I like that. There is a song number, and they do pay homage to Deo in this movie already, but then towards the end there is a whole song number. I don't think that was necessary either. Again, I know the Deo scene is iconic and it's one of the the standouts from that first movie, but did we necessarily need another sort of moment where they were trying to recapture that? I'm not sure. But look, overall, I think Tim Burton and his team did really well by this movie. I think, a legacy sequel like this is so hard this long after the fact. And I think this one rises above most of the others that I have mentioned. Yes, there's some issues I have with it, and I've mentioned them. I think there's too many plots. You could have taken out the song number probably. But I think a lot of the choices that Burton and his team made here were smart ones. I think fans of the characters and that original movie are going to be, for the most part, pretty happy with what they see on the screen. And yes, there's a few little extra nuggets in there too for the diehard Beetlejuice fans. Definitely some little Easter eggs. But overall, I think this is an enjoyable film. I give Beetlejuice Beetlejuice a B. Thank you so much for watching Dan Reviews It, and I will see you next time.